Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Go to the church, though.
Tawali man, what's up?
Man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanye now, Obikwada. Did you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly. Because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk. The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
A very, very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to today's edition of the Hotline Show. My name is Rogers Tulyahabwe, and with me today are retired Major retired Awich Pollar, who's also the Director for External Affairs of the NRM Party. We have Mr. Ochieno Joseph, who's one of the leaders of the Uganda People's Congress. Later on, we'll be joined by Lubega Samuel Mukaaku, who's also a member of the DP bloc. We are not sure where exactly that stands or if it represents the DP or if it's another party independent as it is. But he will be joining us later on, and we will be talking about a number of issues. Today's focus is going to majorly be on the celebration of the 43rd Tarehe Sita that is going to happen in Bugweri district tomorrow. And the theme for this year is celebrating the people's struggle for unity, security, and peace for socio-economic transformation. So we want to interrogate one, the theme itself, but also what Tarehe Sita means to begin with. And for that reason, I'm going to invite Major Awich Pollar to begin to tell us, as a member of the NRM, of course, but also as a retired army officer. They say once an army officer or is an officer, to tell us what exactly is Tarehe Sita, sir. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Good evening, viewers. Tarehe Sita is a Swahili word meaning the sixth. Tarehe is date. Sita is six. Just like you count moja, mbili, tatu, nne, tano, sita. So Tarehe is date, Sita is six. So this 6th is of February, and of course the year is where we are. But it is more remarkable for 6th February 1981. This is a day or a date when the first attack was done on Kabamba. You will recall that then the name was not yet NRA.
Yep.
It had another name. The National Resistance Army came much later after a merger of the group of Lule, Professor Lule, and the group of Yoweri Museveni, now His Excellency. But nevertheless, since NRA ideologically and militarily were more in the lead even after the formation, the date is quite remarkable because the day when the Lule group started the war is not easily defined. So we therefore take this day from the 6th of February 1981 when 27 armed people attacked Kabamba.
A rebel group at that point.
Yeah, it was a rebel group because it was a non-state actor. It was a rebel group, but a liberation rebel group with clear ideological line and clear commitment. If you want to see the commitment, you really don't dare barracks when you have 27 guns and consistently toe a line until victory was attained. So, this is Tarehe Sita. In simple terms, the Swahili and the context.
So precisely what we are celebrating tomorrow, what we'll be celebrating is that a rebel group on this date, almost 8 years ago, launched a war on a
43
government.
years.
Yes.
We may not call it a rebel group.
43 years.
You know, a
43 years.
rebel, ideally, in a normal grammatical sense, sounds like a breakaway. Rebel means you have a system and you are rebelling against.
Yeah.
But we can let pass for rebel. But it was a group of non-state actors, people who were not acting on behalf of the state, and they were liberation freedom move fighters. If you choose to call them, rebel, we can let it pass. But we know who they are, we know their objective, and you see, in a material science, in social science, in dialectical materialism and historical materialism, truth is tested in the results. Anybody can allege truth. You can allege I'm a freedom fighter. You can allege I'm committed. You can allege I'm a revolutionary. You can allege anything, but the truth is in the result, practice. So, that the war was conducted successfully for 5 years, leading to the capture of state power. It's itself a truth that it was a liberation struggle, because no struggle, however armed you are, whether you have helicopters, you can't win. You can only succeed in destroying, and many big armies have done that, including the sophisticated American army. What did they do in Afghanistan? You bomb until you can't bomb anymore. And you end up walking away from the theater, from the operation, from the battle line. But the success of a guerrilla movement, a success of a liberation movement, or a success of a rebel that you said, if it claims to be a liberation struggle, is tested in its truth, and its truth is the climaxing, the crystallization on the ability to take over state power, which we did successfully.
Okay, thank you so much. And also for clarity's sake, that Liberation Army in 1981 was fighting to
not in quotes,
to
real Liberation Army.
To dislodge a Uganda People's Congress government, and with us is someone from the UPC. I want to hear his perspective about this whole, what do you think about the celebration of Tarehe Sita?
It's an insult to the people of Uganda, number one. Number two, actually, I don't know, Comrade Awich. Is tomorrow a public holiday?
No.
Thankfully. Comrade Awich, what resources are being used for the celebrations of this terrible day tomorrow? The public resources or NRM resources?
It is a public resource.
Extremely terrible.
Through Ministry.
Extremely terrible, extremely criminal. I put it on the record that I reject it, and I reject it fully. This day was the day that a group of bandits whose objective was to disorganize a very well established and newly elected and democratically elected government of the Republic of Uganda post Idi Amin that had only taken its position 6 weeks earlier, get faced with a group of guys that included Mr. Museveni, which Mr. Museveni had lost elections in Mbarara North, did not lose to UPC. He lost to DP. He lost, the DP candidate was his brother-in-law, Sam Kotesa, for the record. And which Sam Kotesa actually had made in the campaign some very interesting remarks about Museveni, including Museveni's own identity, background, and the theories and around the justifications about the polity in the West. So I ask you journalists to revisit some of these other things, and for the record, to carry out a detailed investigation 43 years later to see who Museveni is, to see who Sam Kutesa is, to see the changes in their lives, and then to see the circumstances of the banditry that did occur in, that was launched, banditry against the people of Uganda 43 years ago tomorrow. Number two, a number of media houses have had conversations with me over this matter in the last few days, and I have told them again and again and again, and I tell you, media house, that the 27 people, armed people, is a myth, because this was an organization that was Museveni and some of his friends, including some of them who are now in Rwanda and other places, had planned over a period of time, and they did it so well using the resources of the state, including the resources of the National Liberation Army, and using some other public resources by training and arming and equipping particular individuals to prepare for the breaking up of the Republic of Uganda. And number two, in a way, part of what Comrade Awich is talking about the brevity of these guys. You know, by the way, the Kabamba attack was actually a failure, and people don't want to tell you that. You wait for my books. It was a total shambolic failure, a cowardice attack. This thing that you guys give to Eli Tumine, that the first shot, he actually missed. Did you know that? Tumine missed his first shot at Kabamba. Now that attack, daring, relatively, yes, because for me, those are my games, you know, Comrade Awich, those are his training, his trade. Apparently, this guy, J.J. Odong, who's, you know, who hangs around as part of the excess ministers of NRA, is simply rewarded for that. The deal was that JJ would let them in at Kabamba. This whole thing did not work out well. JJ, for the record, because the thing was a failure, a flop, UNLA, I mean, the government got him. He was arrested, detained, and only released by the Okellos. Maybe had it been under an NRA regime, or a regime that, a government that does not and did not respect the fundamental rights and freedoms of the individual, JJ would not be alive. One of these days, perhaps try and check with him. This, again, for the record, 43 years on, we can have this conversation. So that Kabamba attack was one of the most tragic days in the history of this country, meaning that it gave the start of a mess in which, for 38 years, eventually, we end up with a military regime that calls itself a democracy, but a regime that is corrupt, a regime that is military, a regime that mismanages our economies, a regime that breaks our communities, a regime that breaks the nation states, a regime that subjects 1/3 of our country into concentration camps for 16 years, that's northern Uganda and part of eastern Uganda, a regime that invades Rwanda and eventually delivers Rwanda for some other global interests, a regime that invades Congo and gives us a bill of huge amount of money and hate from people of Congo. I can go on and on. So no, it's a bad day tomorrow. Good is not a public holiday, but I want to repeat that the fact that national resources are being used for it is criminal, unacceptable, and maybe I want to consider launching a campaign to make sure that public resources no longer go to feed these guys. We already feed them too much anyway for absolutely nothing.
Okay. Thank you so much. Mr. Mukaaku, you're welcome to the show, sir. And we are talking about the assessment. We are sort of doing an assessment of the UPDF achievements, especially ahead, of course, of the Tarehe Sita that is happening tomorrow in Bugwere district. And I was listening to one of the leaders in this preparation saying that the Tarehe Sita is aimed at streamlining public awareness to remember those Ugandan patriots who sacrificed their lives to liberate Uganda. What do you think about Tarehe Sita?
I hope Senior has already given his take.
Yes.
Given his contribution to building, the effort of building the new army. I would, first of all, want to thank you for giving us the opportunity. And when I say you, I mean DigTalk, as a media platform that really serves not just Uganda, but the world. I also thank my colleagues for accepting to be part of the panel today. Tarehe Sita would have been a day that all of us Ugandans would be celebrating for a transition that everyone, including those within the ruling UPC, the Ochienos who were young, would have wanted and wished a transition from one type of army into a new national, professional, nationalistic, balanced army, standing army for the country, not personalized, neither belonging to a regime or what we would call a handful of people who call themselves the captors of the state. That's what even those who were young at the moment thought would have loved to see this army, because I was there, young as I was, when Amin's army was being defeated, and the whole promise of the UNLA, which UNLA, many of the UPC young activists and DP and those who had participated in the liberation promised the country. You would say UNLA was unfortunate because it carried with itself the seeds of self-destruction and immediately did not live to see what they had. But when we went through what went through after all those short-lived regimes of the UNLA and then the UPC government, that never really settled, because actually after the elections, the promise came true that should we see this election bungled up, then we are going to the bush. I was young, around 13. So I would understand, and at home, my mother, my dad were political activists in the Democratic Party, here in Kawempe. And they all came to us. I remember in the rally where President Museveni was, he said, yes, we are participating in this, but should they bang up this election? And for those of us who were DP and those who were UPC and CP, I didn't hear them question, but they were saying, but look, you were part of the government then, the standing government then, substantive government that was organizing the election, because that was a three-man-led government of Mwanga, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni as vice chairman, and then Itojok, which was now called the military commission. But effectively, that was the presidency, the head of the state headship. That is what constituted it. So, for those of us who were DPs, I used to hear how I used to have a man called Akiki, and said, "Banabasaje bali mukutulimba. You are organizing the elections at jagendo kya musikonga obyetegekede." And it made a lot of sense. But the dream came, the promise came true after the elections. True to President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni and colleagues, they went to the bush. But they went to the bush mainly mobilizing the DPs in a triangle called Luwero. One of the main issues, the bungled up elections, the bungled up governance. the question of governance. And they said, because Museveni was part of the military, because Mwanga was a part of the military, and everyone else, everyone came back here, even up to the CA, blaming the army for having completely messed the country. So the arm of Idi Amin, the arm of, they even claimed the arm of Obote Amin. For me, I was not there, but they were talking about how they went to Congo and they did all the gold scandal. So they said, this army, we must put it right. On the question of a bungled election, question of bungled governance and failed leadership, they stood firm and they said, we get arms and fight. And question number 2, the army had become a problem, because they claimed that Obote and the other people had failed to control the army. To control the army, make it professional, make it nationalistic, national and balanced. Those were the allegations at the time. And it made a lot of sense. And the other one was bad governance, in bad leadership in whatever position. We are fighting bad leadership. If you could summarize the 10-point agenda, it was basically that. Bad leadership, even bad to the extent that we were bad to our neighbors. That is point number 10, if you know the 10-point program. So, when they came back, they said, before they came back, in the villages of Luwero, you know, the Mpigi was covering, I was in Mpigi. Mpigi was covering now what is Butambala, Gomba, Wakiso, and the current Mpigi now, which is Maukota. So it could stretch up to Gombe, stretch up to Madu, stretch. So we were part of Luwero Triangle, and then we had Luwero itself, which was also huge because we didn't have Nakasongola and Nakaseke. The 3 districts, as you know. Now, in their NRM clinics, which we were conscripted to attend, I was at Gombe Secondary School, said, not at any one time shall we see a bad army. An army that is, number 1, is not professional, is not nationalistic, is not national and balanced.
I have a question to this extent. Do you try to mean that, based on all of that, and of course the going to Bush and coming of the NRA later, would otherwise be a justification if this army was now nationalistic? Well,
this is what I'm telling you, the social contract they made with the people. And I'll tell you to what extent that social contract was. They said, not at any one time shall we ever see an army that is personalized as the Obote army has been. And Amin and the rest. Oh, that was a big promise. Not at any one time shall we see the army being corrupt or being involved in corruption. 4. 5. Not shall we ever see an army where a soldier along the way stops somebody because he has a gun and he takes money off them. Yeah? It was all good. Our army must be for the defense of the country, not anything else. It has got to be independent. What do we see today, even if I don't finish all the promises? But before that, the depth of the social contract. It was a social contract written in blood. We killed 0.5 million people on record. But other research indicated that we would have probably 1 million people died, only that many others are not accounted for. If you go to a place like Gombe here, or opposite the villages opposite Bombo, where the war was actually launched, you see the skulls. Those skulls were not collected by any effort. Those people who went back to try and dig were collecting those skulls. There were about 3,500 skulls. But if you take the statistics that we have, it meant that per day, we were killing 273 people to 600. 273 to 600. And per hour, 12 people to 25 per hour. That is the social contract that we wrote. Never to return. And we came back in our constitution of 1995, remembering where we've come from, remembering the people, the blood that was sacrificed, remembering each and everything. You can read it if you want. That is the social contract. What do we have today?
Peace.
The army has turned again to be probably worse than what we had in Obote, personalized. You do not have power, not even our parliament has power to know what this army does in Congo or elsewhere. You know how many times our parliament has asked to know exactly how do we deploy our army, what do we give it? No, you are not supposed to know. There is a certain group of people who probably think, or they are,
The owners.
members, honored to be part of the deep state. Now, look at the day, like that solemn day when we almost lost almost 200 soldiers and above in Somalia. It's no longer ago, because this is what I can bring. Nobody could talk about it. They could not honor our soldiers at Kororo because they died at the job. We even don't know who. The families that they belong still cry. No compensation, no whatever. I'm just giving you an example. And it was not once, even another time and another time. But only for the commanders at the top to come and say, I think they were not well trained. I think they were corrupt. I think just that.
Okay.
So because now the army doesn't seem to be a national army, it belongs to somebody and is the one to account. Whether you question or not, you cannot ask any more questions.
Okay.
And again, just a little bit. And again, Tarehe Sita. For example, we have now engineers in our army, like we used to have, even during the Amin. These people go and do work. Yesterday I was hearing they have now about 800 projects, engineering works. When they work, who earns the money?
The UPDF body, I assume.
Have you ever heard in our national budget that this time round we are supposed to give them 20 billion, but 5 billions are the ones we got from the works
We should
they have
also ask
done?
the Auditor General. I don't know.
No, I don't have to ask the Auditor General. I'm asking those in charge. The Auditor General comes to audit. When we give you a budget, before you think about who will come to audit, you must be accountable. Isn't it?
Yes.
This is a government. We are not talking about a fund honorable. We are talking about a government.
Okay.
Have you had anybody accounting for all those roads and where that money goes?
All right, let's hear from Afandi. With that foundation, and of course I want to also allude to the fact that you mentioned earlier when you were starting that constructively in 1981 that was a rebel group, as it is commonly accepted. You also said that the celebration of Tarehe Sita, the organizing and the resources that go in are national resources, yet it's not a public holiday, means it doesn't represent the people of Uganda. Why do we celebrate a personal party with the national resources?
Okay, public holiday issue. But first of all, we have, with the current technology, the open television and the digital talk, our viewers benefit and they learn facts and history.
Yes.
So it is always good we put some facts correctly, because some of them are learning in class and also they want to use history to determine the future. Now, this brings me to my colleague's comment about the three-man led. According to him, after Binaisa, there was a government led by 3 people. That is the military commission. I'd just like to put it in perspective that military commission consisted of 5 people, not 3. They had Paul Mwanga, which is the chair, and Museveni, Oyito Job, Peter Kello, and Muteso Guy, that is Peter Tai, Omaria. There are 5. And by the way, the history of the formation of military commission was that in the Mosi conference, when Ugandans assembled to discuss the process of what happens after Min, or even executing the war, 3 commissions were formed. There was the political commission to provide leadership. There was also the economic commission to raise resources. And the military commission, actually what they did in the Moshi is that they said, mu electing. And Paul Mwanga at that time was in a massacre area in the front line. He had gone for that meeting in a military fatigue. So they simply went aside with the Museveni and they said, okay, Mwanga, you're the chairman, and Museveni is the vice. So there were 5 members of the military commission. But it is worth noting to our viewers that when Binaisa was overthrown, a legal notice number 5 of 1980 was passed, which established a new government called the military commission. But the head of state, the president, were 3 people, and these 3 were 2 judges of the Court of Appeal and 1 civilian. There was Justice Musoke, there was Justice Nyamuchoncho, there was Mr. Wacha Olwon. And in the instrument, that legal notice that gave birth to that government, said these 3 were head of states. So Ugandans should know that at any one time, the president of Uganda had been shared. And actually, some people are making a joke. Maybe it's a good thing.
So, who overthrew that presidency?
No, overthrowing is another one. I just want to put the facts right. I want to put the facts right. Was it the Paul Mwanga, the president, or not? About overthrowing, that is another. Because it is good for you. For example, the independence celebration, the 9th October 1980. When, like now, you have President Museveni addressing Ugandans in Kololo. The 9th October 1980 was addressed by these 3 people, reading one presidential speech by 3 here in Kololo. In other words, it was a shared presidency of 3, not military commission. Under the hierarchy, the military commission were like, and it was again a group, but like a prime minister. But the head of state, who could sign an act of parliament, because the parliament was called the National Consultative Council, NCC. That was the legislative arm. So the NCC, whatever it would do, the person who assents, a law does not become a law until
the president assents.
So the signing people were these 3. Again, a role of a president, for example, to pardon somebody from Luzira, it was these 3 who had the prerogative of the president, not Museveni, not Paul Mwanga. I just like to put this clear. So I also like to make Ugandans know that at any one time there were 3 presidents, as by the constitution, because the legal notice 5 changed it and it became a constitutional order. It was the law then. It created shared presidency. So these 2 judges, when Obote was elected in 1980, these 2 judges went back to Court of Appeal. They finally retired as judges. The final, Musoke's home is in Naguru here. Nyamuchocho has a home in Kajansi. And Wacha has one near Kampala Palace. I know all of them. So, I just wanted to put that for record. Now, there are really things that we have to put, because you asked me what Tarehe Sita. I was brief and answered it as it is. Yes, my friends chose to answer more than they were asked. So I was wondering if they were asked what would they answer anyway. Some of us, maybe because of my legal training, I chose to limit myself to what was asked. But my friends choose to answer over and above what was asked. Therefore, it led me also to say something wrong. again, the view of, for correction, what Honorable Kutesa might have said about Museveni, I'd like to draw the attention to our viewers that, you know, in political talk, which are not an obligation by law, you know, by some legal instrument, you talk on oath. So what you talk, you are bound by it because you are talking on oath. But political statements which are thrown anywhere, whether in Marwa or in the villages, it doesn't matter. First of all, I would want to know, is it true that Honorable Sam said it? But even if he said it, these are loose political statements which are said in not on oath, and anybody can say it. So we can set it aside. So whatever he said, it is their opinion. We can set it aside. So I don't want Ugandans to be bound by whatever allegation that Sam Kusesa said or might have said. First of all, he has not said he said it. Then, as any statement always committed, and should be taken as it is. So that is one correction I wanted to make. Now, the theme of tomorrow's celebration is celebrating the people's struggle for unity, for peace and social economic transformation. I like to say that this formed the historical context and the achievement. You see, I'm lucky to have been in NRM, and I saw this live. And also, I'm lucky to see its transformation. It's not hearsay for me. The country, colleagues, was not what it is now. You could even hear with songs. For example, by 1986, when we captured power, I was young though, but you could pass on Loam Street. The songs that would hear it being played could show you the state of the nation then. It took a lot of effort of NRM political commissars to actually say that is not the line. For example, you could have heard a song. I cannot say it in Luganda, but I can say it in English, in what it meant, so that people could understand. It was saying like, let them go where they were born. Bagende, bagende, where they are born. That they passed here with blood, like as presumably running. That they passed here with blood dripping. Let them go where they were. Yes. Now, these were songs that would hear. But remember, in NRA, we had commanders like Dr. Bata, who was the Minister of Health. We had commanders like Okecho. We had commanders like Ondoga, and many others. And this was contrary to NRM beliefs and ideology. To the contrary, you could study NRA songs and revolutionary attitude, which were really reflecting the ideals. So NRA itself was shocked that this is what the population was saying. It took a lot of mobilization, political commissars to say, that is not what we are here for. Please, please, this is not what we are here for. We are here for one Uganda. Now, it is achieved to the extent that you can comfortably say, if you had a look at the past army, that NRA, the army, is domesticated. Do you know domesticating a wild animal? Like you have a leopard, you bring it home like a dog, or a lion to be like a cat. The army is properly domesticated. It is not uncommon, colleagues, to know that the past army then, at an open road block, they would tell you identity card on one hand, money on the other. And no newspaper would even write. And people would line it comfortably. Comfortably. Here we are, you still have a soldier, retired as he is, who can sit and listen and make his replies. And even where there's, we have known loopholes in methods of work, we criticize. For example, we have time and again challenged our colleagues and said, you know what? You are the state in power, or we are the state. We have power of arrest. We don't agree with the idea of going with a numberless car to arrest on the street. Suppose an enemy comes with an numberless car, how will you know? Because you did it. Suppose we have a city mixed up with the wrong people, and they do. And it actually seems it has happened, because up to now there are some occurrences which occurred on numberless, and you send the network information among the security agencies. They said we did it. Then who did it? And why? Because you did that. So these occurrences, I mean, this happens, we do notice and we criticize. But the fact is, the army is domesticated, and it is worth celebrating. Tarehe Sita. I was talking to the Chief Justice. I can say this, we're quoting. I was with him a few weeks ago. Badka Turebe said he was staying in a Nakasero in Lumumba Avenue. He was a state attorney. So he said, around his place there used to be people who in the boys' quarter. There are some Bator who used to sell warrant in this boys' quarter. You know, those are big design homes by colonialists for big compound. So he said, one time his neighbor was a major, Oluol, that Oluol's, his dog, he had dogs, a dog actually. Now the Oluol's soldiers complained that the dog had eaten their chicken. So they came to his home and took cover. You know, soldiers take cover and shooting at a dog in Nakasero. And it was not common in those days to hear shooting at night. So when they shot, they missed the dog. That they missed his dog. So he decided to go to Uluol, because they were together at the university. Uluol was a graduate of BCom. He went to Tanzania, fought Amin, and came back. He was a major. So he said, I'm going to face my friend. He's my alumni, after all, at the university. So when he went to ask Uluol, the soldiers asked him, what do you want? He said, I want your friend. I want to talk to him. Because you people came to shoot my dog. If my dog had eaten your goat or your chicken, why don't you tell me I pay? They told him, no, Afanda has gone to Lira. And by the way, we have found out that the dog who ate our chicken is not even your dog. Katarebe said, what? A government army coming to take cover in the compound, shooting at one dog, 2 soldiers shooting at one dog in Kampala, in Nakasero, and later on even discovering it wasn't his dog anyway. So there's so many of these incidents that you'd wonder whether this was a national army or not. Okay? We could have challenges now, but the truth is the army is domesticated. Now, apart on the issue of parliament responsibility, you want to say something?
I do want to say something, especially about that scenario about dogs. Now that one, I understand there were many issues that happened. But now if you give a scenario of this dog and the way the army these days treat Ugandans, not even dogs, I am glad it was a dog they tried to shoot that they missed. These days, your army, UPDF in uniform, stands in streets of Kampala and shoots live bullets at people. Do you make that?
Where?
Do you think that is discipline?
Where?
Did that happen in November 18th?
No, okay, no.
Those
you see,
UPDF,
on the November
attack,
on the November attack that you guys keep referring to,
yes.
The army has made this. The army has said where death has occurred, and you have evidence that a soldier has shot, or police by extension, he will be prosecuted. 2 prosecutions has taken place with sentencing over 40 years. One death which happened in a Wandegea police, where a soldier arrested somebody that very day, brought him to Wandegea. So, as they were taken to the detention, he shot them. He was sentenced.
So who killed the 54
now,
people in
the
that
other one is in a Rubaga at a garage. A man was sentenced to death. So we have said, and consistently so, please, whoever has record even now, bring it. Of course, you guys have seen even before this, we were almost over-exercising the discipline to the extent that there was uproar about firing squad. You touch somebody's daughter, it would earn you death. You steal somebody's, it would earn you death. Firing squad was a common phenomenon to discipline until they say, no, you're violating rights. Say, but violating which rights? He has committed offense against the civilian.
So NRA people were killing and they're being killed?
Yes, we know it. I can cite you many court-martial execution.
So really, we are really celebrating the fact that therefore NRA killed and their commander killed them and then mitigated this, and so now they no longer do it.
Put it your way. But what I'm saying
you can't get away from this. We're simply saying, because you know what? The date we're discussing, and I know I'm contextualizing it.
Not another submission.
Contextualizing it. The date we're allegedly celebrating using our money, and I really take strong exceptions on this matter, considering the deaths of people in hospitals without drugs, you know, and the roads, Nagonga Road, that I've got to pass over the next few days. These guys went to break the neck of people in Luwero 6 weeks after.
I thought you were talking about
6 weeks after UPC government came to power, and they're claiming that the government was out of control. You know, was it within the first 6 weeks of NRA coming to power that NRA soldiers were killing? So what's the difference?
It becomes a very difficult discussion if we get mixed up. Our discipline, our NRA cadetship discipline needs a very good way. Because I am talking about institutional framework to instill discipline in NRA, which is historically demonstrated by firing squad. Now, my colleague comes in, I thought he's going to challenge whether or not it's a good method, and he's taking us back. But I want to maintain that I am driving a point that historically in NRA, the discipline was so hard, and it was even enforced through firing squad. Until our colleagues, especially from Western Europe, you know, Western Europe has banned death sentence. America doesn't talk because America has death sentence. Have you ever heard America calling about death sentence? They're okay with it because they practice. But Western Europe has abolished death sentence. So they thought we are being harsh. But for us, we are saying, look, even if we are about 30,000 or 20,000 NRA, how are you going to control excesses of discipline? We have just seen it in the past army. So this one, you may see it as draconian or being too harsh, but we thought it was our method and it worked. So I'm demonstrating that we did it. Now,
First hold it, Honorable. We're going to first go to a very short break. But as we also go, I hope that it's one thing that many of us, you've done those, you've court-martialed many of those people, but even the indiscipline still continues to this day. Many of the times these issues have happened, and we see them every day. We don't want to come to this show and pretend it is only you who see some of these things and I feel that to execute. We are Ugandans and we see these things every single day.
When we come back, I'm not dealt with Parliament.
So we will, yes, we'll come back. Yes, we will come back. When we come back in the short commercial break, ladies and gentlemen, when we come back, we're going to talk about some of those issues, but also understand of all things, and it's a thing that Honorable Ochieno has hinted about, priority spending, all of the issues that we have. We have government planning mergers of agencies because of public administration spending. Where do we get resources to organize things like Tarehe Sita, really? So we're going to go in for a very short commercial break. We'll be right back. Don't change.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Go to the church,
Tawali man, what's up?
Man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanye now, do you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly. Because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Welcome back from that short commercial break, ladies and gentlemen. My name again is Rogers Tulyahabwe, and with me is Mr. Joseph Ochieno, who is a leader of the UPC party. Another is Major Retired Awich Pollar, who is Director of the External Affairs of the NRM party. And then we have Honorable Mukaaku Lubega Walter, who is a member of the DP bloc, to be specific. And we are talking about the NRA, NRM, Tarehe Sita, all of these things. From where it began, they've laid a very good foundation for us to understand how many of these things happened and how do we get to where we are today. And understanding, making sense of some of those issues that are happening. And today, tomorrow we'll be celebrating the 43rd Tarehe Sita and marking, yes. And some of the questions are about spending, but also I had one particular, and I hope that you'll answer it. But before you go to that, you had a contribution, and then we can cross to that issue.
No, I think
I hope we have not left this subject.
No, we haven't. No, we haven't.
It appears.
No.
But I had also not finished by
We
special issues of parliament.
will come to it in bits.
This guy is from NRA. They've been talking froth for the last 38 years. They still want to continue talking froth. No, but look, it's extremely important. As a matter of interest, Comrade Mukaaku and I rarely disagree. But I'm not going to fundamentally disagree, but rather give context. You know, DP, as Comrade Mukaaku said, by the way, your program, this program, is a fantastic program. I don't know how we can make it much more accessible to more Ugandans and friends of Uganda. And I generally don't know how we can maximize viewership, because it's one of the few programs and networks in this country that give depth to some of the issues that are, in my opinion, very critical to the building of the future of this country. DP and NRA worked together. Comrade Mukaaku is actually right, and perception is a terribly difficult thing in politics. He was 13. His parents were DP. To them, UPC was this terrible thing, you know. And the point that might be lost is he's saying that actually DP bought into this NRA agenda, thinking, whatever the arguments, that they were actually going to be partners in the liberation. And NRA basically sold froth to them, and indeed to the Republic of Uganda. Now, in context, the question of governance is basically what I'd said earlier before you came on air. That really, NRA had no grounds 6 weeks to after the establishment of a new government, to determine that this government is so bad, with such a bad track record, you know, we must go to the bush and fight it. I'm trying to tell Ugandans, this was a scheme, and it was a scheme by Museveni and all his friends, including the Kagames, to do a thing on this country. And the voters were warning on this. DP sort of bought into it because there's this thing about an enemy to an enemy is sort of potentially a friend. You know, and key people in DP, with the Cortezes, some of whom later found DP, actually DP mainstream found, and it will not be in this program, DP mainstream found that some of the people who were really with them had some other interests and loyalties beyond political party activism. But we'll not go into that. So that gave a very good foundation for this. And number two, Comrade Mukaaku makes a very important point. Luweero Triangle was actually a DP hotbed. And for us in UPC, we actually argued where in Luweero was elections rigged, for example. You know, elections were not rigged. But finally, Comrade Mukaaku, you were 13 and I was 17, or thereabout. In fact, I turned 18. 1980 general election was not rigged. That is why to date, the ministers, and Obote wrote this on his notes on concealment of genocide in Uganda, and I urge young Ugandans to read this. You know, he challenges that on the coming to power in 1985 by the Okellos, who were basically DP friends, and then eventually Museveni's, you know, the key ministers in Museveni's regime at the time were predominantly DP, Ochieno Joseph, Justice Mulenga, Sebana Kizito, so very critical guys in critical ministries that would others be related with investigations or justices. They could not establish. So it was generally the case, my colleagues, that elections had not been rigged, but Museveni had an agenda. Granted, DP itself struggled to provide for this. That's why in 1982, Comrade Mukaaku, Obote wrote actually that, and told me some of this, that he called a meeting for religious leaders, DP and other political players, with a view to simply saying that, look, the propaganda about rigged elections was fueling Museveni's havoc in Luweero and denting the image of the country. Remember the context. Uganda, after 9 years of Idi Amin, that all of us had actually sought to undermine. Then the 2-3 interim administrations. The elected government had actually come to try and fudge a mess to try and turn it into something which is viable. But then, bang, come 1986, come February, the war in Luweero, meaning bringing insecurity and lawlessness in the country. So making it very difficult. So 1 year later, in fact 1.5 years later, what called this meeting and was telling, including religious leaders, Cardinal Sunga was there, and saying, you guys, this thing is causing us problems. DP needs to come clean and take a moral position and a clear position and say that, look, if they really have evidence sufficient to be tested in court, that the particular parliamentary seats that whose results would actually show that they had won the elections. Obote said that he would not wait for this court process to go. He was prepared for the UPC government to resign so that the interim administration takes hold pending the outcome. This is actually on the record. These are things that young Ugandans need to know. And why? It's also that power, people think power is for retaining by any means necessary. Mukaaku was talking about very important things. This thing about the havoc, the bloodshed that took place in the Luweero. I really hope Ugandans remember that that's actually what people were subjected to. But they're subject to this predominantly by and for lies. And then 3, the UNLA that Comrade Awich is talking about, that was Museveni's army. Granted, a critical section of UNLA was Kikosi Mahalum, which was made of Obote grouping that were established in Owinkibul in Sudan. But generally, this an army of all Ugandans. The UNLA that Obote says he found, Obote says again that by the time he returned in May 1980, he found many of these guys had given themselves ranks that he couldn't even recognize. So it was not a UPC army, it was a national army. And the challenge for Obote was trying to fudge an army, fudge an economy, fudge a nation state, and deal with the criminal banditry of the Musevenis throwing bombs here in Kampala. So it was a very, very difficult time. But of course, because we really don't have much time, and his time has gone on this, I'm simply saying that this day sowed seeds of discord and hatred. And the song that Comrade Awich is talking about, I also have some, and I have some friends in NRM who tell me some of the stories that I don't want to talk about at the moment. Museveni is the one who created hate in Luweero. This business of them versus us, meaning Bantu versus the others. And indeed, these things continue today. And actually, ironically, if you compare what the NRA regime represents today in terms of ethnic imbalances and things like generals from one family, generals from one sub-county, it is extraordinary to attempt to make any comparisons with UPC.
I have a question about a comment you just made, that it was a national army, and you mentioned about how he came from somewhere and he found guys had given themselves ranks and whatnot. Ideally, I think a president is the commander-in-chief, is that right?
Yeah.
Do we then blame other people for the failure of that national army?
No, and I have never done that, and he has never done that. I'm just saying, putting in context, that a national army finds itself under a new command and within 6 weeks is involved in war of terror, backed by Gaddafi, See that 16 years Museveni committed, literally, if this NRM regime committed genocide in northern Uganda for 16 years, It took us political leaders to try and compel a settlement to bring peace. I am simply saying, therefore, within really 4.5 years, it was too much asking, or rather within 2 weeks, 6 weeks, it was too much asking for a new government that whose foundation was actually Idi Amin, not even 4.5 years of military Obote's, number 2. But then number 3, which is more important to say this. Generally, there is always this assumption of people walking down the streets of what happened in 1986. Uganda had stabilized between 1981, notwithstanding the war in Luweero that included in PG, Luweero, and by the Comrade Mukaaku, outskirts of Mukono, and indeed outskirts of the other side of Obende, with effects, some of which actually reaching Kampala. So we minus that, Uganda's economy had turned around completely. Problem is, when Museveni's friends in DP and some of the guys in NRA, sought to overthrow the government in July 1985, again, Museveni betrayed the other and refused to come from the bush. Meaning, therefore, that between July 1985 and January 1986, we had 6 different militias, operating in Kampala. Maybe people like the Andrew Kairas, because lest we forget, if they came today and established what circumstances these people, what happened to them. So for 6 months, the 6 months, you can't blame it on UPC government or the previous government. The 6 months should actually be blamed on NRM, the Museveni who was invited, and I was there, when Museveni was being invited to Honorable Museveni was requested to report to Kampala immediately, and Museveni refused to join. So the fighting in Kampala was again a creation of Museveni's failure by betraying his friends. So we ended up with 6 militias. Finally, the looting of Kampala, the militias operating around, the lawlessness by the armies, including Amin's and the terrible armies, the Moslems, Alis, all this, those people had already come back to Kampala. So meaning post-Museveni, meaning post-1986, that's what people see back. They see the Kampala of 6 months leading to the NRA Kadogo boys coming to take over Kampala. And then finally on this, the fact that the Kadogos came, here in one day, I witnessed one and I nearly escaped one, Wunu Oyomucholi, meaning that these guys would call people and people would go ahead and kill NRA boys and NRA people. So to present these guys as if they're some kind of funny, saintly kind of guys. And in any case, anyway, the Mukura massacre, when did it happen? It was in 1989. How many years was that? 3 years after NRA guys came to power. Can you compare some of those other things, whatever was happening under military? But I want to contextualize this. This thing of tomorrow is one of the worst tragedies to have happened in this country. Museveni and many of these people need to be held responsible.
Okay. Thank you so much. And when you speak about that, I was reading a book, it's called For the Good African, is it Coffee? By Rogers Tulyahabwe, one of those entrepreneurs. The book is about economics. Yeah. But in one of those, he was detailing some of the situations that were there after the overthrow of that government, and how the army in Kampala here was behaving, and how all of those guys people were living in terror every single day. If you survive a day and you survive another, it's just you live a day by day. There was no assurance for another time. But I want to move to Honorable Mukaaku. With all of the progress, let's say the progress, and the UPDF as it is today, and for what it was back then, and how the army as a formation was back in the day, even before the NRA, do you think there has been some reasonable progress, or should we say discipline, thus far, as you see the UPDF as it is right today, and what it was back then?
True. We can't say nothing has been achieved. For example, probably during Idi Amin or other armies, after talking like we have talked here, many times we would be attacked on our way back.
You would not be seen again.
Even now, even now it has happened. Yeah. But I'm selecting my words.
You'll be on NBS
I'm selecting
again.
my words.
Tomorrow
You'll be on NBS many times you would disappear. Even today, disappearances are there. And you have heard our parliament has put its foot, stamped its foot firm.
We have been
and Major knows this. And Major knows this. The whole of last year, that was the case. People disappear. I am a product of safe houses, and I have scars. Okay.
So am I, by the way.
And so everyone.
I think
but I can say probably I would never be seen again. I'm lucky, probably because when you get the levels of that particular behavior, probably UPDF and NRA a little bit better.
Far better.
Then the idea of having roadblocks and being the I don't know what I could call them, but the front, not the front line, but where you must check out or in for your death. Roadblocks. These days, the roadblocks are not that. Okay, are not that. Then again, I think the patience of the population, the people that have been recruited in this, the patience because of the politicization, which is also very important. What the other armies also lacked was that degree of politicization. Patience has been huge because you can't imagine these soldiers, as I'm going to tell you, how the circumstances they live under compared, for example, those circumstances the Idi Amin soldiers or the Obote One soldiers used to have. We would have seen mutinies. Because Mama Ingia Pole for decades. The gumboots which burn your feet and the poor pay and all this. When you compare, we would have had mutinies and coups. So that is a credit and coup-proofing, the coup-proofing aspect of our UPDF now must be, we must thank them.
Although I want to say that it is the case because it's a personal army.
I mean, we have talked about that one. I'm just trying to wherever possible, be as positive as possible and look at the credit that has got to be given. That, the coup-proofing, because with the circumstances they live under, with the pay, with the I would not call it discrimination, but ultra nepotism that is within this particular army. Ultra, he can't tell you this, but I will represent him and tell you exactly. Yeah, he can't tell you this because he's, you know,
he's an officer.
And he knows. If he did so, he would be at risk. I don't want to risk him, but I'm his representative because I can say the ultra nepotism in this particular army. So much that even the language within the barracks has changed to what we knew and what every Ugandan would have expected. These majors have been forced to speak a language that they would never be speaking. Not because it is the language that when they went to the bush, the language they were speaking. No. Because you can pity them. That when they were in Luwero, basically they had to mix with the people, talk that language. They learned it. Like those you send to Somalia. If they come back speaking the Somali Arabic, it's fine. But now they have been forced to speak that particular language because of ultra nepotism. I just want to be, because we have children who are watching this.
Yes.
But everyone understands it. And I've represented you effectively, Major. But when you, with that, all these, to coup-proof, mutiny-proof, that army is a great credit to those who are manning, maneuvering, whatever they are doing. I know this is the army where even the simple administrative things are not done in the normal way. You heard of the Byakutaga scandal. Taking the salaries in a bag to pay the paymasters pay these people like it's their army. It's not like what we know in other armies, that whether you are serving in Iraq or wherever, your money will
be in the
it's not like that. That's why you've heard of ghost soldiers. This is a phenomenon not even the colonial army, the early post-colonial army experienced, that you would have ghost soldiers. But in this one, the ghost soldiers are there because every commander has the power to recruit whoever he wants irregularly. But how they have managed to coup-proof is phenomenal. I must give them that credit. But let's go to the real issue. 2 steps forward, 7 steps backwards. 2 steps forward, 7 steps backward. The late Cyprian Ruanga decried, and there is an article I had wanted you to have a look, but maybe we don't have the time. UPDF must take a hard look at the 10-point program. Late Cyprian Ruanga, you know when he died.
Yes.
Not very long ago, but not today. He was watching how people were disappearing. Men to disappear with men in UPDF uniform. Our uniform. Many of them officers with our guns, in drones, sometimes in military vehicles, meant to disappear. That was not a good record. When this prelate, like many others, saw how people are being shot at in the capital city of Uganda because of something that has happened in Iruka. Not that the president had been assassinated in Iruka, or there was an attempted assassination in Iruka. Just marauding soldiers. This is when these people came out. When you see mothers crying because their children have disappeared. And the promise was, never must we ever see this. And that's why people believed and accepted. And we are sorry. We are sorry, Comrade Ochieno. We must say sorry to you. Because this is not what we bought. Our parents and the young people, the Kadogos, bought into this, believing that this will never happen again. The Kadogos, from the Kikome Kose Diabanese, the Jumas, you see, all those ones were Kadogos. Some of them as old as 9-8 years to hold a Kalashnikov. Having lost their families, they never believed this could happen. Again, even those young people, the Kadogos, who fought and did, many of them, as long as they don't come from a certain segment of our society, have not been repaid. They still beg to be looked into. Go to Luwero. The other day, some minister and the president representative were not ashamed to say, you Luwero people, we gave you 5 rollies. 5 rollies. If you went to Luwero, have you visited Gulu today?
Gulu?
Gulu.
No,
have you visited Gulu today?
Not recently.
Oh, you need to. Go visit Gulu and visit Wobulenzi or Nakaseke or these. Semutoka peka masulita. Abana ba Museveni batudeyo. Chigombe chanini. Go there and visit. What the Luwero person will ask, what was so different from the war of Kony and our war? That for us, Wachato, Semuto, Nakaseke, all these ones, Ramata, must look the way they are. That true, Gulu, he will testify, they went through a very bad war. Very bad war, nasty. But true also went through a very bad war. But when you look at the reconstruction, okay, NUSAF 1, NUSAF 2, NUSAF 3, these are programs. These are programs deliberately put by government, a government of the people. Why don't you balance it up? That the Luwero people could also have NUSAF 1, NUSAF 2, NUSAF 3, and also have roads like those people have. These people, the Zizingers, captain as she came in, captain as she died. Zizinga was the only woman. Captain as she came in, captain as she died. Bamutire, captain as she came in, captain as she died. It's funny. Itongwa, Kadogo. Almost the same rank as he came in, the same rank as he went out. It's not good. It's not good. UPDF, as you celebrate Tarehe Sita, we have seen people, even when they are going to retire, and they know they are going out, then from brigadier to general, so that their allowances are going to be fat. How about these Kadogos? How about my major here? Because he has served. As you promote the others, he should also get another rank. Today, I'm representing you. Today, he would never be a major. He would never be a major. He came in, I saw him, he has contributed here at international level and local level. As you promote Muhoz, he should also be promoted another rank.
Thank you.
So that when he retires, they share the same. Share the same. But lastly, they will just, I beg you. The tyranny within the UPDF. Recruitment. I told you the ultra nepotism. Do you know the salary of a private?
No.
in UPDF.
The last I checked was around 300,000.
0.5 now. After long. Do you know the salary of one day pick to be like an officer cadet? Like an officer cadet, they come and pick. They'll never pick him. They'll pick somebody who come from the same whatever, and within a short while, he comes with one die here. Do you know his salary? 3 million. The disparity. And on that 0.5, he must contribute 50,000. 50,000, yeah? 50,000 to the circle.
There was a
But then as he comes out, they say they have borrowed, he has been borrowed in advance 8 million. Do you know how much he pays? 220 as to pay the loan of 8 million. So effectively, our soldiers will only have barely 200,000 a month. And you expect them not to steal, you expect them not to do whatever they do, to sell their guns or to borrow their guns to those who are doing the havoc. These, they must have a hard look. If I knew I was coming for this topic, I would have really given you a lot of information. And these people have came to me as a presidential candidate. They have come to me in many other ways to represent them. Unfortunately, these people who go to parliament never want to talk about these things.
Thank you so much, Honorable. Thank you for representing Major. And I wanted...
And I think and all of us actually on this. Very emotive thing.
Yes,
really,
yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to, I'm glad that you have a legal background. I wanted to also understand, Tarehe Sita celebration...
No, even those who work for our, these works, do they ever double their salaries?
The ones who are now...
They ever double their salaries.
Okay.
We pay them as Ugandans. Somebody collects the profits.
Major, as with your legal background, I want to understand, first of all, the legality of Tarehe Sita, seeing as then it was a rebel group. The UPDF is literally a construction of the 1995 Constitution. I think what is the Article 208 or thereabout. Why is the UPDF that came over 10 years, I think like about 15 years later, celebrating a formation that it wasn't a part of, that did not represent Uganda at that point, that this far for 43 years we still celebrate?
Well, you are saying I have a legal background. I'm a lawyer, I'm an advocate.
Yes.
Legal background would mean somebody who heard about the law. But
By the way, maybe he answered this. Have you retired?
I have retired. So I'm an advocate. I'm a member of the Law Society.
Yes.
So not on a legal background. Now, before I answer your legal nature question, I'd like to tell my brother that he has made this observation, but he has repeated he's talking on my behalf. No, I'm okay. He's not talking on my behalf. I've not delegated him. I don't share his concerns. So I've not delegated him to talk on my behalf.
By assimilation.
We understand your by the way, we still understand your disclaimer.
We understand
your disclaimer.
Now, the legality of NRA, UPDF, and this, it basically emanates from what you call the Kelsen theory of constitutional law. Kelsen was an Austrian judge and a professor. Kelsen theory talks about when you overthrow a government and take legal effect. For example, if you overthrow a government in the morning and you take legal effect that you are the new government, today in the morning, if somebody tries to overthrow it tomorrow in the morning and you arrest him, you can charge him of overthrowing a lawful government. It's not enough to say, hey, but you came yesterday. I'm also trying my chance. No. Therefore, NRA came by legal notice number 1 of 1986, and therefore constitutionally asserting the control of government and became government. And therefore it became an organ. Now when in the constitution it became UPDF, in the constitution there were provisions for transitional provisions. Transitional provisions means the conversion from this to that and this to that, or even the time when this would still move. Therefore,
I've heard it didn't become an organ. The state became an organ of the NRM.
No, it is. Now, therefore, since it legally became, it took over the reign of power in 1986 by legal notice number 1, it became the National Army. And when it was transformed in the constitution by being called the UPDF, it continued in that. Indeed, in name, because some of us preferred NRM because it had the revolutionary spirit, it had the resistance spirit. We still believe there's much to resist, but we borrowed from, Tanzania.
So
Tanzania called theirs Tanzanian People Defense Forces. So the members of the CA, the wisdom in CA is saying, no, let's call it the People's Army Defense Force. It's, after all, Tanzania is calling. Tanzania is
trying to stop the personalization.
Yes, so the delegates in the CA preferred calling it that, but it continued the same. So the legality is from the legal notice number 1 of 1986, coupled up by the transitional provision that carried in the Constitution. I think I've answered the legality. Now, I want to comment about what...
But the statement is very good that you've made, and I thank you for being honest. They wanted to make it a people's, but it continued the same.
Now, he had made a comment about how Parliament doesn't know what happens in the army. That is not true. In Parliament, there's what is called the Committee on Defense and Internal Affairs. And I like to make it clear to the audience that it is even what is called the classified spending or classified budget. It's not classified per se. The law provides that there are select committee members of the Committee of Defense who swear, who scrutinize this on behalf of Parliament and vote to take the secrecy. Because there are some state secrets that you may buy this weapon or you do this for the best interest of Uganda, but you wouldn't like everybody to know. So, in Parliament of Uganda, there's a Committee on Defense and Internal Affairs. And this committee scrutinizes each and every coin. So, classified is not as classified. So, even the money we use in Somalia, even the money we use in Congo, wherever there's deployment, the elected representatives of the people of Uganda know. Don't be scared by the word classified. Classified is not classified in budget, in the parliamentary activities. Now, my colleague...
But Fanda, we have seen time and again when Parliament has asked questions about spending, about deployments and all of these things, and the security. So
I can assure you
as openly said, you don't have... We don't need to
that's not true. I can assure you the Parliament's Committee on Defense and Internal Affairs scrutinizes budget of defense, but they do it with an arrangement of Parliament where you have selected committee members who does the work on behalf of the rest, and they report with a commitment on oath. That is what happens in Parliament. Now, again and again, my colleagues keep mentioning the NRA that we're celebrating today, that they committed the genocide in the north.
Yes.
And I happen to have been both. I've been both NRA and I come from the north. You see, even by ordinary definition, genocide is a deliberate attempt to kill a particular gene with the intention to wipe it. That's why the word genocide comes from.
So definitely.
But and then apart from the legal definition of genocide, surely genocide is not what you can hide. First of all, genocide takes place in mass number, in what you see. So I do not see the contradiction of concealment of genocide. You can't conceal genocide. Genocide
what
is
magic
death.
number constitutes the mass? What magic number constitutes? 60?
No,
100?
First of all, if you look at the definition, the ingredients there is intention to a gene, okay? So you must have the ingredient of intention, you must have the gene, and of course you are killing this gene. And killing, for example, if you did, unless you cannot say, I've decided to kill the Jap where you come from, and a soldier kills 5, and you said this 5 was intentional. So you meet the ingredients. But what I'm saying is, in practice, leave alone the theoretical or the legal definition, we have all known that where genocide is imputed it has been seen in a scale that is seen by every Tom and Dick. So I like to say this is incorrect use of words meant to intentionally sway public opinion in bad faith to NRA. Now,
But not to the people of Uganda.
then my colleague further makes, we make incoherent presentation. For example, my colleague from the Congress says there are six groups in Kampala.
They oppose believe it's 7.
And he says these 6 were fighting in Kampala and causing disharmony. Why? Because Museveni didn't come. How can somebody who has not come be a cause of your fighting? Instead, if he had come, he would have jumped in the confusion. You tell me that me, who is far away, I have not come, and therefore I have caused your fighting. It's illogical. That the fighting were in Kampala because Museveni refused to come. I thought the person who refused to come actually refused to join in your fight.
No, he was actually in Kampala. His forces were here and they were actually part of the
But
mass
I heard
killing.
you are refusing to come.
No, he refused
to come.
He refused
To come for peace
to
talks.
come, before
So
peace talks, he refused to join the government of the Okellos at the time. The arrangement was actually he would be part of this himself, the Okellos, and many others together. So he was being invited July 1985 on Saturday in the evening. Report to Kampala, he didn't. From then on, he continued fighting, he continued infiltrating Kampala, and like Comrade Mukaaku would say, there were already many NRA supporters in Kampala anyway, and they continued
So
with the
we are here in this TV. 6 people are fighting in Bugolobi, and they invite me to go to Bugolobi, and I don't join them. And they tell me that they are fighting there because I didn't join them.
No, that is simplistic, because here we don't talk about Museveni the individual,
Anyway,
but Museveni the NRA leader with
the confusion there, if it needed Museveni's presence, indeed,
It was.
on the 26th of January 1986, his presence was here and everything was clear.
It has been since.
Everything was clear.
The object
If you
was
wanted his presence,
the object was eventually met.
on the 26th February, his presence was here and the mess was cleared.
So when will his
Now,
disappearance be?
I also take comment from you, although I thought you had the impartiality, but I doubted the impartiality because when I gave the example of Bat Katurebe, my insistence was not so much on the attempt to kill the dog. My insistence was the indiscipline of the army.
Which
That
has
you have
continued up to
Nakasero, that I am told that even any soldier would be in some corridor when he gets a chance, bullet. That you're in Nakasero, you're hearing shooting in Lumumba Avenue, you're hearing shooting down near Sheraton, another shooting down near Fairway Hotel. What kind of an army is this? So it wasn't so much about the dog. It was about the uncontrollability of the army, where they was shooting everywhere, anytime. So the dog was just
So when
there would have been no human being, NRA would have found nobody. Sorry.
Which is better? For civilians to die en masse when the army is fairly controlled, that is shooting, or for civilian to die en masse when the army is not. Which is better?
For us, we are not even talking. For us, we are not even talking of civilian dying in en masse. I have told you that even killing one civilian for NRA, not even en masse, would hand you a death, a firing squad, a death by firing squad. So how are you telling me dying in en masse when even killing one civilian hands you a death?
So when the uncontrolled army kills one civilian and the controlled army kills one, what is the difference?
So in other words, I'm saying by putting a soldier in firing squad for killing one civilian, I'm saying even en masse is unheard of. We would adore it because we start with one. So how can you kill for one? And
please continue, sir.
So now there's also I like to say that the army has been progressing and administratively and logistics. So the pay system that had been at one time, person-to-person payment, has been developed. And of course, even in law, you can pass a law in parliament today, you will soon see that there's a gap and you will amend it. Even in administrative structures, you may find that today you're being transparent, that soldiers, you call everybody. In fact, that was a deliberate attempt to be transparent. Kopolo, Ukelo, come and sign for your money. There's a payroll they sign to be open and transparent. But we realize that this transparency also had loopholes. Just like in law, in any administrative structure, it has since been changed, soldiers get money through the bank, so it's not a big deal. Recruitment procedures, colleagues, I'd like to tell you that the army we are celebrating tomorrow has a very transparent recruitment, to the extent that even UNICEF is called. If there was a recruitment in a Kibwa Stadium in Lira, even UNICEF is called to come and watch this recruitment. Does it meet the standard? For example, in regards to children, okay? Everybody is told to get LC
A
letter.
children's army?
No. You see, it is like this, Comrade Ochieno. Uganda is a member of international community. Under international law, Uganda has ratified Convention on the Rights of the Child. Article 38 and 39 of that convention makes the third party which has ratified obligatory to a binding commitment that in your national army you want to recruit children. It emanates from that. Secondly, there is an additional protocol on children and armed conflict of UN, which Olaro Tunu was very active in. That protocol of UN provides obligation on states that whenever you are recruiting in your national armies, be transparent and don't recruit children. This is a serious matter. Congress, you are making it so simple.
No.
You're making it so. It is an international obligation.
I feel so strong about it.
Yes.
Because tomorrow is the day when NRA killed the law of this country, went to attack Kabamba, and started a reign that saw the recruitment of children into the army, and so NRA is a child army.
Recruitment.
So,
No. You are wrong. You are wrong.
Yeah. Recruitment and use.
No.
Yeah.
It was
Capture.
conscription.
So in other words, thank you. So in other words, actually, that's a point that you should really not have mentioned.
So
you should have omitted UNICEF, because I let of NRA in many ways.
Why am I mentioning UNICEF? UNICEF is the UN mandated body on children's rights. Like you have UN AIDS, you have UN Women, you have women. They are all.
So if you don't mind, my brother. If you don't mind. So at what stage did Museveni get to know that these agencies and these provisions, global provisions, existed? At what stage? That it is now convenient for them not to use children, when actually the date tomorrow is a date in which Uganda created a militia, a banditry thing, what you call an army, that translated itself into an organization that conscripted children and taught them how to throw bombs, taught them how to throw grenades, taught them how to kill, and taught them how to hate in this country.
For the flow of this debate, I wish you take the NRA revolutionary method.
You notice I'm so competent.
I take notes.
You notice I'm so competent.
So it becomes, I take notes when you are talking and I reply to you.
With respect,
but now it is,
no, let me just say this
becomes
very
so
quickly.
confusing.
Let me just say this with respect. No, if you don't mind. No, I am, we are all colleagues. By the way, we are very colleagues, Comrade Awich and I. No, I am so competent that you notice I hardly ever, rarely refer to written scripts. Once in a while I do. So it's my style. I am very, very comfortable. And nobody has ever complained about my deliveries. And I do this globally.
It's not a written script. It's just to avoid interfering in what you are saying, so that if I want to say it at that time, I note it down. It's not a written speech.
No,
It's that when Congress
make the substance, make the point. We are discussing child soldiers.
Anyway, now I think I've dealt a thing on recruitment procedures, because some people seem to think recruitment are done in concealment and it's in
that
secret.
Is the point you're making.
It is done in open, and it is advertised in a gazette, in a public newspaper, that Ugandans on such and such a day there will be a recruitment here, and it is open in a Kibwa Stadium in Mbaraka Cheka ground, and everybody goes. You are expected to come with a letter from LC. You are expected to come with your birth certificate and academic papers.
Okay? Just one small question in relation to that. I'm just relating. Then why did we fight Mwanga and the UPC government? Because they announced the elections in the public, the results were gazetted, and then we say, basing on that, we went to kill 1 million people. Now here is saying the recruitment these days is
Done in the open.
done in the open. It is gazetted. So he's saying nobody should challenge it.
But I don't see the similarity in that.
No,
example.
the similitude.
anything, one of
The
them
similitude
is
is
an output,
the other
one is
time
an
we
input.
faulted those people who publicly
So is the
announced.
issue doing something in public? Here we are talking of something, you are bringing out what you are bringing in public. It is an output of what you have done. Now here we are talking of an input. So
As
I don't see the
as you
example.
conclude, sir.
No, but you never hurried them. Why are you hurrying me?
No, at times
You
when
never
are-
hurried them. Now my
Give
other
him 2
comment
minutes
is
at
I've
least.
given him
the
my 1
Luero
minute.
program. Colleagues, Luero rehabilitation of war-ravaged areas, it was one of the 10-point program. And the idea of that in the 10-point program was actually targeting Luero. And a lot of resources have been put. The only way you can see the resources put in Luero is by the consecutive budgets, one after the other. From 1986, if you go to the records and you check the national budget every year, you will see clearly projects under Luero and money there too. If the issue is the control of resources, which you could call loosely corruption, then let us address it. But from the first budget that NRM ran consecutively, if you go through the annual budget that is read every year, you'll see the component of Luero.
Okay.
So much has been done.
Just for the purpose and for the people of Luero. We are all intellectuals and we know. Do you accept that when NRA went to Luero, Luero's productivity was
Interrupted.
10 times bigger and more, 10 times more bigger than that of Gulu?
The figures speak for
Yeah,
itself. You can
yeah.
find it on
Do you know?
display.
Secondly,
You can display it if you
we
are.
don't, because the facts are there.
Yeah.
True Gulu was affected by the war, was really ravaged. But it is also true Luero, whether you are talking about Kasana Luero or Wobulense or Semuto, whatever, were ravaged. Do we now, in the same arrangement, with those budgets you're talking about, do we have the same thing
In terms of output.
in terms of output?
If you talk of Gulu per se or Northern Uganda in all, we can do this study. Figures show. I am not really comparing, but what I am saying is, it is not true that Luero was one of the 10-point program and it is slipped. What I'm saying is that it was one of the 10-point program, and the only test that we can find out is in the subsequent budgets. I am saying that since 1986, because Luero was on the 10-point program, war-ravaged areas, I can assure you
Chiruhura was
subsequent, what?
Chiruhura was not. I didn't bring Chiruhura because I wanted to use
So-
1,000.
The only test now
That's
is
a
somebody,
reasonable
and the records are there, to go and say the budget of 86, 87, that was the first budget. Was there a Luero component? 87, 88, was there a Luero? And so on and so forth. All these were contained. So,
The issue of contestation is not that there were not those budgets. Those budgets are there. Unfortunately or fortunately.
and the money released?
That
is why
we don't know.
wait a
So what
second.
happened?
That is
Please,
why I
listen
say,
to moderator.
Please wait.
And you'll have the time.
Unfortunately or fortunately for you, I come from Luero. And I have seen many of those things. On the way to my home is a place called Dwani where there are like millions of those skulls of people who died in the war. So at what point then does the development that happened, for example, in areas like Gulu, not happen in Luero, even with those budgets that have been there
And why?
allocated? What becomes the problem therefore?
you see, the Gulu that he's talking about, Gulu has had...
By the way, the Gulu people, I only use that example because
You
Gulu
see,
went through.
And
Yeah.
I know why he's talking about Gulu, but if you talk of Northern Uganda, it has had, say, the first NAP, Northern Uganda reconstruction, that was about infrastructure, schools, bridges, hospitals. And that is why they kept on crying that, how comes you have put so much money, the people are still poor? They thought it was an intervention strictly in the pocket. The government said, no, this intervention is for hardware intervention. for public utility.
Okay,
Then another stage, it came
just
to
for
intervention.
purposes of not stigmatizing one section of the. Let's now just use Hoima. Hoima, yeah, because Hoima, the war went through there. Let's compare Hoima and Hoima. One would say there is oil, there is this. Let's also use Kasanda. Kasanda Mobene, because there is gold.
And that was the whole...
There is gold, isn't it? There's gold. So here there is gold and there is oil. Let's look at the infrastructure.
So the Gulu that is talking about, Northern Uganda reconstruction went in phases. The first phase was the hard structures, that is bridges, schools and hospitals. Then the other one later came up to recently, when it is only of recent that it came to household. Household was the last. Household interventions. Household was the last. But what he's talking about are projects in the city, for example. This World Bank project of urban development, which were given in many towns, including Soroti and others. That is why it attracts people in Gulu, because Gulu has managed to redesign their streets. Long streets you can see. Those are the World Bank urban development program.
So the urban development of Kasanaluwero or Wobblens or whichever town you can pick, Mubende, whatever, the urban development of there must not be the same as that one of Hoima, of Kiruhura.
Time is running out of hand, unfortunately, so we don't have so much left. We have like 8 minutes to get out of the studio, and I want us to give our concluding remarks. I'll begin with you.
Are you going to time? This Congress and the Democrats?
Yes,
no, I will. I gave you a few my minutes, and I'll give you a few more minutes.
So let's take 3 minutes at most.
No, I can clearly say that this conversation is a conversation that was important. It needs to be revisited. Much earlier today, I was thinking, what another waste of time just giving NRA PR. They've been around for the last 38 years. They control the media. They control everything. They've looted our pockets. They control our public services. They control organizations. They've got their end. Museveni appointed armies. They do propaganda, crude propaganda. They don't allow opposition to speak. And now they control academic institutions. Vice chancellors and chancellors, are yes men and women for these NRA guys. So not giving them the space. But actually, this conversation has brought out why exactly I think it's important we should have this conversation. NRA is a fraud. This day was a fraud. And as far as the citizens of this country is concerned, January 25th, which is the NRA 1986, with the 25th, which is turned 26th, and this February 6th are amongst the most tragic days in Uganda's history, and in Uganda's history. And I hope that very, very soon, this conversation continues. Ugandans wake up and we begin to have a conversation of a national reconciliation where we have a complete investigation about some of the situations. Comrade Mukaaku has raised very important things. Obote, in his notes on concealment of genocide in Uganda, raised as early as 1991, by the way, in his texts, when he was challenging Museveni, that this war thing was started allegedly in Luwero. That's the Revolution People's thing. So how many NRA, people in NRA, how many Baganda, to be very precise, people from Luwero actually did use Baganda, from Luwero, we include other identities, who were in Luwero, how many of them were ranks of majors and I think, and above. And it was very clearly the case that there are hardly any or there are very few. Some of this conversation has brought it out. Do you know what? We can't take back history. We just want to have this conversation to critique an open mind so that that we don't follow things and situations like zombies. And for the three of us, particularly 4 of us, including the young one, but 3 of us actually, we need to be able to persuade the majority of Ugandans that, look, we need to be able to have a national conversation so that never again do we go through a process in which you have some dubious people, sometimes whose agenda we don't have a clue, whose background we don't have a clue, whose intention we don't have a clue as a nation state, because the stakes are really too high for this country. Because they repeat for Luwero, they repeat for Northern Uganda, including Gulu, whatever the World Bank thing in the Swiss, at least it's not money from Museveni's Kuruhura home. They repeat from the massacre of people, the roasting of people in Soroti, in rail wagons, the skulls that I found in Managongra. By then in Managongra, 3 people, NRA buried 3 people in one grave by the Komla headquarters, one of them allegedly was still breathing. So we can go on and on and on. Tomorrow is a sad day for this country. It should be a mourning day, and it should not be anything to celebrate. And I reject again, once again, it's an insult to the people of Uganda that natural resources are being used. But anyway, the remaining 2 minutes of mine, I hand over to Comrade
You have
Awich.
finished
Thank you so
it.
much.
You-
Honorable Mukaaku.
First of all, I want to thank
Yeah, please use 2 minutes at most.
Digitalk for giving us the opportunity and showing that celebrating Tarehe Sita is not an affair of just the military officers or the high echelons of the UPDF. It's a national issue. The debate within the population and also within the UPDF, of course, I sympathize them because they don't want to do away with whatever has helped them to coup-proof, to mutiny-proof. I sympathize with them, and it's not what the country would have loved. But put the real debate, the real issues at the core of progress. You see, there is a word. Sorry buys nothing, yet, no, pays nothing. Sorry pays nothing or costs nothing, yet it buys all. I don't want an officer, major, captain, lieutenant, private, whatever it might be, or general, to, when we raise these issues, for them just to be defensive. Look at the issues brought on table. Is it an issue? Is it the deficits, the transparency deficits that are in recruitment?
As you conclude.
How do we help our officers live the parity between the serving officers? These people sacrifice their lives. It doesn't matter whether they are from Ankole, Kirura, or wherever. It doesn't matter. But we want to kind of replace the bad apple, the bad policy strategies, to the bad practices from within our army. We want it to become national, professional, nationalistic, balanced, and an army that all of us can be proud of. So I want to end there because I don't want to eat into his time, but there is a lot that we can talk about regarding the payment, recruitment, how we keep our army, nepotism within this army, and also coming clean to the past records. And when we talk about it, not just well, but also how they behave in Otai, while they're pursuing Peter Otai, even in Karamoja yesterday.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Honorable Major, if you conclude also.
In half a second.
Please conclude.
2 minutes.
2 minutes, yes.
It is finished.
Plus one.
Now, I'm not raising new debates. I just want to conclude by saying tomorrow is a day we are happy about, and Ugandans are happy. The army has been domesticated from the wild army that it was to a reasonable, civilized, educated people who can live with people, and you don't even seem to realize there's an army in the community. We are happy that the army continues to build in it this discipline with challenges therein, institutionally, and the courts and the laws there too. We are happy that the coup-proof that is saying doesn't exist, and not because of manipulations, but the ideological clarity in the army. So I'm happy that Ugandans have an army that you can even walk unless you may not realize there's an army. Properly a lion domesticated into a cat at home. So we have to celebrate, and I salute my comrades who are there. I'm retired, but my heart remains with them, and I'm with them.
But one thing, you remember a man called Sabit? Sabit?
Mutengeza?
No, Sabit from Fort Poto. He killed a minister, and the minister was also part of the army, you know. The minister was just
Yes.
That case is very symptomatic.
Are we opening the debate?
No,
very symptomatic of something.
Our time is done, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for following the conversation from wherever you're joining us. I'm seeing Stella Akelo. I'm seeing Innocent who's joining from Canada. Ethan Mwine from Mankala, Turkey. I'm seeing Brooke Williams and many of you. Thank you so much. And unfortunately, we didn't have time to read some of those comments. Next time, maybe we'll try to do better. But with me were gentlemen who are all senior citizens and ones who have an understanding of what Uganda has been what it is and what they think it should be moving forward. So I want to thank you for all sparing your time to come here and speak to us. Many of the people who follow us are largely young Ugandans who need to get this kind of information and make decisions about the future in a very informed manner. So thank you so much for taking your time. My name is Rogers Tulyahabwe. Thank you, Lillian, for being on the camera, and Jeremiah in the studio, and for everyone else for making this happen. Thank you so much. Have yourselves a very good night.